You're watching SchreckTeck, where tech is Shrekky. This show is sponsored by Synapse 3DI at www.synapse3di.com and by Relate Corporation at www.relate.com. And good morning, everyone. This is SchreckTeck, episode number 19. I'm Rick Zanotti, and joining me today, as always, is Gina Schreck.
Yeah! Oh, Gina!
Hello, Gina.
Fun today, Rick. I hope you're prepared because my great friend and productivity queen, I mean, she taught me in a year of working with her on a project how to get things done. Well, she helped me get things done. I don't know how much she actually taught me because I'm slipping back into my old ways. But welcome, Neen James, our friend from Australia. And actually, she's now in Pennsylvania, as we were saying earlier, but when she starts speaking, you'll see she's really from the land of Oz.
G'day, everyone.
And so we thought what a great topic to pick is how do we stay productive with all of today's technology? Are there apps and tools we can use to be more productive? And how do we manage through the madness? And this week I've been guilty of being totally consumed by Google Plus. So, that was the biggest news. I mean, Neen, you're finally in.
Yeah, I got on yesterday and had a bit of a play.
And Rick, are you in yet?
I've been invited, but I'm not in yet.
Okay. It's still holding on to the bars.
That's right.
In. Yeah. And several folks in the chat room are in. It's interesting. I just saw some numbers. As of July 10th, so 2 days ago, 7.5 million people have gotten in and set up accounts.
Wow, that's growth.
That blew me away.
That's probably why they're having a hard time getting back to people.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would guess today probably they're probably hitting numbers somewhere around 10 million.
Gosh.
It's fast. And right now it's still kind of all the techies getting in, and then normal people are saying, I want to wait and see.
It's kind of like Twitter. When Twitter first came out, people wanted to see what others were doing before they jumped on. It's the same kind of idea. Seems like it's growing even quicker than Twitter did, though.
Now, do you think this is going to be like Google Buzz, which was kind of a flop, or do you think it'll actually take off?
I think this is going to take off. My concern is, and I'm sure the concern of many others is, gosh, is this just another thing now we have to add to our plate? Or are we're going to see this battle between Facebook and Google, and will Twitter be integrated into both? I mean, it's just interesting right now. It's like we're being flooded by all of this, and I think people like Google Plus who are more technical and not more social. The people who love sharing pictures of their families and vacations, I think, love Facebook. And true. I think Google, we're going to see people go to Google who want to share news and kind of project-based, and I don't know. It's interesting. Right now, again, it's all the techie people going over there who are interested in experimenting, so I think we're seeing more of that type of information shared anyway. But I don't know. What do you think, Rick? You tend to be more skeptical with Google+.
Well, I don't really know that much about it yet. I've read about it. I haven't really gotten into it. I'm sort of like the anti-social social media person. So
he has his own his anti-social media circles, and there's just him by himself in it.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
It's a happy,
and I refuse to allow myself in.
Yeah, you and my husband would share. You would almost share circles, but it would be too social. So your circles are close to each other.
That's right. But within just enough distance.
Yeah. People are always amazed. They go, I found your husband on Facebook. I said, he won't accept your invitation, and he never says anything.
I actually invited your husband on Facebook. I found him. I go, let me invite him. Nothing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just look from afar.
Which proves he's as antisocial as I am.
He is. He never, I don't think he's ever posted. The only thing on his Facebook is all the stuff my girls and I have posted on his wall. So yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see, you know, and looking at this from a productivity standpoint, a couple things I like, and I sat down and wrote down some side-by-side comparisons of, you know, Google Circles are just like Facebook lists, the friends list, when you can group people into lists. Even though Facebook has not really embraced the use or made use of lists, but Google really is encouraging these circles. So Google Circles and Facebook lists are very similar. It helps you organize and really keep your friends and contacts into different groups so you can share. When you go to share an update, you choose which circle do you want to share this with. I still have a feeling people will be lazy and just say share with all at first. But then there's the Google Hangout, which is the video chat, which allows 10 people to do video chat together. And Facebook has their, I think they're calling it video calling right now, where you can call one person video from your Facebook friends. So that's another similar. Google Plus has 10 people can get on. And then there's the Google Plus huddles, and that to me is the same as Facebook chat for mobile, where you can get a bunch of people in a stringed conversation and chat. What's interesting to me is Facebook still does not have a good mobile app anywhere. I mean, there's a lot of these third-party apps that were developed, but Facebook never has developed. Google Plus right away came out with their mobile app. I have it already on my Android phone. So that's interesting. Again, they're trying to take some things that people might have been griping about in Facebook and create that. And then Google has their Google Plus location, which another interesting thing. I don't think as many people use Facebook Places because Google Plus location is the same as Facebook Places, but to log into Facebook Places is more of a process for people. You can't just go from your wall and log in or check in. You have to go to Facebook Places. So it's almost like going to a different page. So I think productivity-wise, I think Google is going to look at how they can streamline. There's still some things missing. I mean, over 50% of people on Facebook play games. I mean, that's kind of a high number when you look at all the game players, Zynga and whatever, Farmville, Cityville. So Google, no games. So you start seeing a business focus versus the personal sharing where that originated. And then Facebook has questions where you can survey your audience. Google doesn't have that yet. So, you know, there's, and business pages is the big one. Facebook has business pages, but it took them a long time to create those. Google is already talking about, do not create a Google Plus account for your business, because they will shut down all non-individual accounts, because they really want to, they're going to set it up right. They're talking about.
Are they going to be doing a business thing?
What's that?
Will they be doing business?
Yeah, right now you can just set up a Google Plus account, you know, Gina Schreck. But if I wanted to do one for my business, for Synapse Connecting or for Getting Geeky, they don't want you doing that yet. But they will create some business pages.
Now, that brings up a good point. Since we've got Neen on, and Neen is our productivity expert. All this social media, Neen, how do you stay productive when you're on 400 different networks and everybody's tweeting and everybody's doing this? At what point do you sit down and actually get some work done?
Yeah.
When it comes to social media, Rick, I truly believe that the best tip that I can give any of my clients and the audiences all around the world, no matter when I speak to them, share this as their favorite tip. The reality for social media is you need to look at it as 15-minute increments. Sometimes what happens is we get so tempted to click on things, follow links, tweet out, and the reality is I guess you need to be really clear why you're on it. If you're playing games, and that is definitely one of your recovery activities, that's how you choose to spend your time. However, if you're using it for business, you may want to look at it as, say, a 15-minute rule. For example, one of my clients, he didn't want to get on LinkedIn at all, and so I asked him to spend 15 minutes every day, and I asked him to go into LinkedIn, set up a profile, invite connections, contribute to conversations, and build a community. You know, Rick, what was fascinating about that was he built a community of 5,000 people. In that community, he has booked keynote speeches, got a book publishing deal, and adds incredible value to people on a daily basis. And this is a guy who wanted nothing to do with LinkedIn. So when it comes to social media, I think you need to be really clear on why you're involved and then choose your tools. I spend most of my time in either LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter. They're probably my favorites. But when I'm out and about, I like Foursquare for social things. So if you are going to try and really make sure you get productive, the key is to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, but to look at it at 15 minutes. That's the key to social media.
So ideally, I was watching some of your podcasts, and by the way, they're great. You've got some really good advice in them.
Thanks.
A lot of it is really just chunking your time, organizing yourself.
Right.
I know a lot of us do. I'm sure Gina does. I know, not Gina, but we're all interrupt driven.
That's right.
Shiny
It's
object,
BSO,
shiny
bright,
object.
shiny object.
Yeah.
And social media is a BSO.
Yep.
It is so much more interesting to talk to someone from high school than it is to do your work. So be aware that it can be BSO, but it can also be brilliant for business. And so we have to manage that interruption.
Right. So it's really a question. Manage interruption, manage the chunking, give yourself time to do things, and then slowly but surely your days start. You get control of your days, because you said one thing on one of the podcasts that I thought was so telling. You hear people say all the time, I just don't have enough hours in a day. That's me. I'm one of those.
Right.
Of course, if I look at my time, I probably have 4 hours in a day that I could actually be using that I'm just flittering away by either interruptions or whatever else.
Right.
So what do you do usually? You tell people 15 minutes, just really discipline yourself to kind of have a routine, or?
Let me take Facebook, for example. Facebook, what has to happen is many of the people that are viewing this, and maybe you who are viewing it afterward, might need to go on a Facebook diet. Because what happens is we get so distracted and we want to play and we want to have conversations. And so maybe you need to start looking at Facebook and look at it in chunks. Maybe 15 minutes is the key. Now, when it comes to multitasking, in the morning, I love to have my coffee and see what's going on in Twitter world and in Facebook. And so it takes me about 15 minutes to make it through my coffee and see what's going on in the world. And so that's a task I will happily multitask. So what you may want to do is also think about using the aggregation tools. There's so many choices available. One of my favorites is TweetDeck, but find a tool where you can also see what's going on across the social media sites. I Google, you can set up a page for yourself. There's lots of tools, but what you want to do is find what works for your lifestyle. I also check in later at night when, other people in my life are doing other things, but you need to make sure that it is something that's adding value to you and not actually distracting you from achieving your goals.
And another thing that I always tell people is learn to live mobily. I mean, Neen and I both, we can't live without our iPads and our,
Right.
She's got her iPhone, I've got my Android. I think being able to, because when you talk about the chunks, more cowbell, little chunks, there's so much of our day that I feel like is this wait time. You might be at a doctor's appointment and you've got this 10, 15 minutes waiting in the waiting room, or maybe you go to meet a client for lunch and you get there 15, 20 minutes early. To me, those are always times I can take a chunk and reply to emails, reply to people on Twitter or Facebook, and do something that I don't have to wait until I get back in my office and say, I still have an hour to sit down and do this.
And one thing that I call that making time in time. And a brilliant tool to use that is Dropbox. Dropbox, as many of your viewers know, is a service where you can load all of your files in the cloud and your team can access them. And I love being able to access it from my iPhone or my iPad, or, maybe you're using a Motorola Zoom, whatever tablet or phone you're using. It's an easy way for you to know that your files are current, that your team can access. And I know when we reached out to some of the viewers, Gina, they mentioned that team productivity was something they were interested in knowing more about. Dropbox is one of the easiest ways for your team to be productive. Tools like Google Calendar is another or Yahoo Calendar, whichever one you use, but It's another tool that people can use for their team to be more productive as well. And those little 15-minute chunks of time you're talking about, Gina, they are brilliant to think about what can I be doing to make my team's life easier as well. So it's not just about you.
Yeah, and when you and we worked on a project for a year, and we couldn't have done it without Dropbox. I mean, it's just, I'm still amazed that people, and I have a client that yesterday sent our whole team saying, here's version 7.11.11 of my book. Wow. Because that was the date. Every time he makes a change, he changes the title of it to the date and then re-emails it. And I thought, I remember those crazy days of emailing and then searching for what version was it, and somebody forgot to change the version. Where Dropbox, there's one document. It stays living like a Google Doc. But I'm surprised there are so many people who still don't see the value of these type of cloud-based tools.
No, it's interesting. We've been using Dropbox for development over the last, I'd say 6 months to a year, and more, where we have people around the country doing different pieces of a project, and now we're all coordinated with Dropbox. It just makes it real easy.
Oh my gosh. And what we started doing is when we take on a new client, I immediately set up a Dropbox folder just for that client and the community manager who manages their account. And then the clients always, well, what do you mean? What is this Dropbox? And I said, any photos, graphics, documents, everything having to do with your account is in that folder. Any of us can access it at any time. And it's, you set privacy settings so that just that person or that team of people can access that folder. And then this other client folder is accessed by a different group of people. And it's just now a standard part of our operation. Every client gets a Dropbox folder. And it just makes things, gosh, you know exactly where to get it. I can access it from my phone, from my iPad, from my computer. Saves tons of time.
And it also saves space when you think about it, because you're not waiting for stupid big files to download when you're calling up or you're remote. You and I, Gina, travel an enormous amount for our work. And so for me, my whole operations manual is on Dropbox for my office to be able to reach out. So if a meeting planner needs an introduction or a photo or a headshot updated, my office can reach it really quickly. And the good thing about Dropbox is that it's avoiding wasting time downloading files and space on our servers as well.
Right. I love it. I mean, again, it's one of those tools that's in the top. I just, as a matter of fact, wrote a post and an article that I was editing yesterday for the top 5 productivity tech tools, and Dropbox is in there. I mean, I still am amazed by some of the basic things people still aren't taking full advantage of. Even smartphones. How many people still don't have a smartphone because they don't see that it's worth that investment? And yet, look how much time it would save you if you really learn to use it. And some people have it and don't really know how to use it.
I think, Gina, one of the tips that people need to really be productive with technology, you actually need to do an audit of what you need. So you need to determine what your lifestyle is. If you find yourself out of your office, if you're on the road, if you're in sales and you're working from your car, or if you travel a lot on planes like you and I do, you need to do an audit and know what your tools are. But don't buy the tool that's the trendiest. Buy the tool that works for you. If you are an iPhone lover, then go with that, or Droid, whatever your choice. But be aware that one of the ways to really increase your productivity is to do your research on the tools that you need. Once you know the tools, get educated on what they can do. I'm sure that there are amazing things that I still haven't tapped into that I could on my iPad, on my iPhone. But what we need to do is think about getting educated on the tools we choose to use as well. And the other thing I would say about productivity is if you really want to get productive with your technology, you also need to make sure you're backing it up. The beauty of things like Dropbox is it's already backed up for you. But things like your iPad, your iPhone, whatever you're using, make sure you allocate a regular appointment once a week to back up all your tools.
That's good advice.
As a matter of fact, I just yesterday shared a Backupify, and I think, Rick, you and I talked about that site before. Backupify, Backupify, backupify.com will back up a lot of your social sites as well. Because what would happen if all of your Twitter contacts were gone? I mean, when we've had those glitches in Twitter in the early days where you'd wake up and it has 0 followers.
You would have no
they're
friends.
They're all gone, and then they're back.
You would have no friends.
Yeah, you have no friends. And, we all have those days. But I think that's another thing, that the more time and value we have placed, all of our valuable content into these social sites, we need to start thinking of things to back up. So, Dropbox and Backupify for our social sites, looking at how unproductive we would be if we had to scramble and find lots of the information we put in there.
Now, Gina,
absolutely. Years ago, I had my laptop stolen. It had a book written on it. It wasn't backed up properly. And I will never, as long as I live, ever neglect my backups because of that. Now, that was before cloud technologies and things like that. I've also spilt red wine in my laptop as well. I am Australian. I'm sure Jeff understands that. But the reality is that backups are essential.
That's true. Now, do you find that with your iPad, you don't need your phone as much?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I find. I have an iPhone.
I'd probably carry it around. Besides Skype, I wouldn't even need my phone.
Yeah, it's interesting. Ever since I got the iPad, I'm on the second one now, I don't use my phone that much. I almost don't care what phone I have anymore. It doesn't mean that much to me. Just an interesting change where I used to use my phone for everything. I barely use it anymore other than making calls.
And it's interesting. I left, I was somewhere and I didn't have my phone, or was in somewhere, and I thought, oh, wait, I have my iPad, and there's an app on my iPad called Hey Tell, and it'll send a voice text to anybody in my database there. And my daughters and I have used it a lot back and forth. It's almost like a walkie-talkie, because you can just send a message. They hear it. If they have the app open, they hear it. If they don't, it pings, so they open the app. But that's how I got a hold of her, because I didn't have my phone. So, yeah, I think we're going to see the integration, although we definitely don't want to be making phone calls from our iPad, even though I'm crazy and I take pictures all the time with mine. So, I'm out there hiking with my iPad, which was pretty silly.
Yeah.
Hiking with an iPad.
I know. It was funny. The reason I was looking at what are the social sites that I update on a regular basis. There's LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, now Google, but there's Instagram, there's YouTube, there's Foursquare. I mean, these are just sites that you're going, talk about shiny objects, and there's so many of them. Now, most of them are pulled together and aggregate through TweetDeck, Hootsuite, one of those tools. But, which, by the way, I did hear that Hootsuite pretty soon will have the, I'm sure all of them will, but Hootsuite's already talking. They will quickly get the Google Plus integrated into their app. But, I look at it and go, there are lots of different, you use different social sites for different reasons. I'm an Instagram fanatic lately. I just love the creativity of that app. And it's just a photo sharing app, and you can integrate it into Facebook and Twitter and so on. But it is more creative, and I'm trying to, take more photos and tell digital stories with photos. But, there's a lot of distractions. And I think if we're not able to use tools to pull things together, and I think most people are aware, okay, I need TweetDeck or Hootsuite to really be productive with that. But I think even within the app, it's how you set up your columns to be most effective. Make sure that you're looking at the columns that you really need to look at. And then the ones that are the shiny object columns, like, wow, when I have time, I'd like to read what's going on in these tech news, columns, move that over a little bit so I'm not constantly distracted by that, and turn off notification sounds, which is another,
Yeah, we need to turn off all those bells and whistles. And I also turn off the stream that I can see people tweeting. So I really just go into TweetDeck when I want to view what's going on. I have columns set up like mentions and direct messages, obviously. But I have a column called People I Want to See Tweet. And so that's really only a handful of thought leaders that I really want to know. What are they talking about? What are they blogging about? And if you ever look at my retweet history, you'll see that it's probably a handful of people that I admire. So when it comes to things like TweetDeck, you could use Ping FM as another tool. There's so many different ones out there. But the thing I love about that is it also pulls in a Facebook feed so I can see what's going on there. When it comes to productivity, don't forget about the old-fashioned tools. Things like email, voicemail, these are all technologies, and at one time were considered quite leading edge. So while we're really amazed with the apps and the new toys, don't forget about being productive with the existing technologies that many people are still using, because depending on your clients, some of them may not have embraced some of these apps and tools. So you also need to make sure you're being highly productive with the old technologies too.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you're talking about using some of these apps, what is your opinion on scheduling? scheduling posts and tweets?
You know, it's interesting. Many people probably have heard of a guy called Scott Ginsburg. He's called the name tag guy. And whenever he's online, he's really online. Nobody tweets for him. It's truly him. And he's very adamant that it needs to be real time. And I have other speakers that I admire who pre-schedule them. I'll tell you when I use scheduling. I schedule if I'm going to speak at a large engagement and I want to surprise the audience by tweeting out points that I'm making throughout. And so that is a way that I use scheduled tweeting. And also, too, for things like today's call, I was able to set up some tweets last night that went out across the day. So I use it more as a promotional tool, I guess, for events that I'm speaking at or conferences with the hashtag included. So that's where I guess I use it when I'm maybe not online at that time. I think there's a certain surprise element, and it's kind of neat if you're there live and it's a real conversation. Social media is still social. It's still about connecting with real people. And I think if we lose that through lots of scheduled tweets and the person's not there when we respond to them, you might be less likely to reach out to them again. Now, in saying that, what I would encourage some of the viewers to think about, though, is things like Facebook chat. I don't always want to be chatting with all the amazing friends that I have, so it might be worthwhile occasionally to change your status if you don't want to get involved in chat conversations on Facebook, if you don't have the time to be able to invest in those conversations.
Which, by the way, most people don't know about the feature in Facebook chat. If you click on the chat and open up the little settings icon, you can make yourself unavailable. It'll turn chat off, and you can do this by list. So I have a family list with my daughters and, family members in that list. I turn that chat on. They can always, if I'm on Facebook, they'll see that they can chat to me. But then, and I think I have our Synapse team in a list that's on, so they could chat, but everything else is off. So that's another way to be productive, is really be choosier about who you allow to interrupt you during your workday.
Right.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And so when it comes to interruptions, it doesn't matter whether it's social media, your voicemail, or your email. We really need to learn discipline, and it's something that I think we've got a long way from. And so when it comes to being productive, what I'd encourage people that are watching this today to think about is, what are the goals you're working on today? And I have this little sign on my desk that says, what is the best use of my time right now? So it could be that you need to work on a proposal for a client, and you can treat yourself to looking at Facebook or Twitter after you've written a proposal. But what happens sometimes is we give away all these little bits of time, and it steals from the bigger picture. So I'd love the people that are watching to consider, what are the big picture goals that you're working on? How about getting those things done first? And then reward yourself with social media conversations if you're using it more for pleasure and for the social side of it. Now, for work, when I'm working on Twitter and I'm working on my blogs, I focus really on that particular activity. But once I've written a blog, then I can go and have a play. So you can combine work and play and still be productive. What you want to be really careful of, though, is I bet you all those little bits of time you're giving away, you could have written a really cool blog in that time.
That's really true. Anything going on in the chat room, Gina?
Just interesting, Jeff talking about, Skype, and that's a great productivity tool, and just being able to meet with clients and do Skype calls from anywhere. And now with iPad, on the iPad too, the ability to do a Skype call from anywhere, again, not having to worry about, I'm going to have to drive back to my office before I can log on to do a Skype meeting. Save that drive time and schedule your day to be more productive, and Skype from wherever you are. So I do
tally coffees. So you make a coffee and I make a coffee, and we talk on the tally phone. It takes no more than 15 minutes. I do tally cocktails on a Friday. I love those. But even with local people, if they want to meet with me, I say, I'd love to see you, but let's Skype. And here's the great thing about Skype, or you can use Uvu, or Tango is another one you can use. But what it does is it forces the person you're talking with to pay attention, because when you're on the phone to them, what happens is they can multitask on their email. But if you Skype them, Uber them, whatever tool you're using, and you video call them, they can't be distracted. So a quicker meeting is a good meeting. So think about using video type meetings to increase the productivity of your meetings. Now, my telecopies, I have an agenda. I always make sure we cover the bullet points and we agree on the actions at the end. So it's like a face-to-face meeting, but I don't have to leave the luxury of my home, hotel, or my airport. So be aware there are much better ways to meet, and embracing technology is an easy way to do it. Now, ladies, you do have to do hair and makeup occasionally, or if you've got a really good friend like Gina, sometimes we Skype after we've worked out, which is not so glamorous.
We always say that's a sign of true friendship.
Think about hair and makeup.
Skype without your hair and makeup.
See, we don't worry about that.
Oh, it's terrible. Here's another a real good productivity tool that I discovered a few months back, maybe 6 months ago, that we use on our team, and I just love it. It's a free tool, and it integrates with Google. As a matter of fact, you find it in the Google apps, called Mini Moon. So, and if you go to the website Mini Moon, MANY, and then Moon singular, MOON, minimoon.com, it is. The more I use it, the cooler it gets, and I find it to just be, there's so many features in it, but you set up the project that you're working on, you assign who are the team members on that project, and then you start listing every task that has to be done, and you assign that to a person. All of us can access the project and see who's doing what. You update it, it sends you daily emails. Here's your task list for the day from Mini Moon. It's just a really great team project management tool, and I've found that to be so helpful, because I think one of my biggest time traps is not having that plan and waking up in the morning and sitting down to get some work done and going, oh, well, let's see first what's going on, in social media or whatever, and I forget that, I have to do this one piece of this project today. So, sometimes we need those reminders and those project tools that help us. And I don't know if you know of other tools like that, but we love Mini Moon.
Yeah, we use Basecamp. That's another one by 37 Signals.
Basecamp
is very similar. It's about $37 a month for about 10 or 15 people.
Okay.
Very reasonable, and again, the same idea as Mini Moon. There's a lot of good ones out there.
There are. Mini Moon is free, so to me, it's better.
Well, what I like about Basecamp, it also ties into HighRise, which is our contact manager.
Oh, there you go. This does tie into your calendars.
It does. Okay.
But not.
But these tools are great, because especially in today's day and age, where we're dealing with more and more people that are just basically all over the place. Everybody's remote. It's an easy way to get people collaborating and figuring out what they're supposed to do that day. And we're not using it to its full extent. We really just started, but it's so far so good.
Basecamp.
So Gina mentioned that I think is important too, and that is the whole idea of planning in the morning. In my book, The Secrets of Super Productivity, I talk about, when I wrote it, I talk about investing an hour, 60 minutes at the top of the day. Well, we all know no one's going to do that anymore. So that part of it's a little bit out of date. However, I always advise my clients, just start off with a 15-minute planning strategy before you even get into your day, before you get onto social media, before you start to look at your to-do list, and understand what are the big picture items that need to be completed. The other thing you want to think about when it comes to being really productive is choose your top 3. What are 3 activities you need to get completed before your head hits the pillow tonight? And that might be a project, a proposal, it might be scheduling tweets, it could be all kinds of things, but if you really want to increase your productivity, you need to know what you're working towards. It's very easy to be busy. Busy is not productive. And so it's about achieving more of the things that have impact than just getting things done.
Now, how do you deal with the procrastinators?
Oh, procrastinators. So here's my take on procrastination. Procrastination is a gift, Gift. It isn't such a bad thing. That really less than 20% of the population actually really procrastinates, where it's truly paralyzing. Some of us are just slack and we just don't want to do it. When it comes to procrastination, it's the 15-minute rule once again. Just invest 15 minutes doing something. I don't care if you make a to-do list about it, if you actually scope out what needs to be completed, if you need to recruit help, but at least do something for 15 minutes. You would be astounded. Sometimes we procrastinate on things. We do it for a number of reasons, Rick. Number one, we don't know where to start. Number two, we don't like the person who gave it to us. Number three, it feels bigger than it really is. So what I also recommend to people is get a procrastination pal. Someone who can kick you in the butt, and you can call them and say, hey, I'm procrastinating on this, help me out. And their job is to get you back on track. Often when we talk about something, it's not as bad out loud as it is in our heads. So procrastination is really not a big deal. It's about allowing us the choice to see whether that task or activity is important. So stop looking at procrastination as a bad thing. Think about, well, you know what, I am procrastinating, and say it out loud, but now I choose to be productive. And it's the simple choices we make every day that increase our productivity. It's not rocket science. It's not a big deal. It's about making small daily choices, and that's how you get more productive.
And and I think if you have procrastinators on your team, using tools like Basecamp or Mini Moon, that helps those folks because it sends them the daily list of here's the important things that have deadlines. And I think that, and that's really helpful.
Yeah, and using even the simplicity of tasks in Outlook. If your office uses Microsoft Outlook as your communication tool, there's so many ways you can increase the productivity of just your email. You can actually highlight an email in your inbox and drag it over to tasks, and it opens a whole new task for you. You can allocate it to someone else. You can set a deadline. You can drag and drop it into calendar, and it opens a whole new calendar appointment for you and allows you time to complete a task. And you can also drag and drop from your inbox into your contacts, and it will populate the field with the name and email. So there's lots of ways we can even get more productive with tools like Outlook, which most people have access to. So if you don't want to invest in a software or an app, you can easily just get to know the tools you already have at your fingertips to increase your productivity.
Yeah, that's a good point. We use Outlook and Exchange, and I don't do any of that. So
I know,
I'm going,
funny?
That's a good idea. I've got to start doing that.
Rick, so many people use their inbox as their to-do list, and that's
just
not helpful. It's overwhelming. I met a client last week who had 6,000 emails in their inbox, and surprisingly, they were overwhelmed. So, when it comes to email, it's not the job. It's a tool to do the job. And so many people, I promise you, you could sit on your email all day and you'll never master it. You'll never get to the bottom because email will keep on coming. So you have to get clever with the tools that are already there.
Oh, was that the Gong Show? What was that? Gong.
That was the gong of enlightenment.
Wait. Everybody pause for a moment.
That's
Yeah, and yesterday we had a meeting in our office, and we said I was going to look into a webinar on Hootsuite, all the features because I said I think sometimes like email and the tools we use and we think we're really familiar with, if we go back and take a class or something, we might find there's some features that we don't even know about that would really help us be more productive.
For sure.
Taking those. So, Neen, are there any favorite apps that you have found on your iPad or other sources that have really helped you?
Yeah, I am a person who loves to draw mind maps. My husband calls them my spider webs. And when I work with my clients, we call it Neen storming. Everything that I do, I create mind maps. And one thing I love about my iPad is that with, these cute little styluses, you can use it pretty much like a notepad. And so it's eliminated a need for me to carry client files and paper because I use an app called Note Shelf. On Note Shelf, you can choose the kind of book or journal you want. I even use it for my daily journaling when I'm doing my quiet time. But also, I use it now that every client has their own book. So when I'm in a meeting with a client, I can draw the mind map, I can take notes. When I'm preparing for presentations, I start a book for that particular conference, and I've always got it with me. So Note Shelf is one of my favorite apps. I think Calculus is kind of cute. It's fun if you're a visual person and you want to be able to have a corkboard with your to-do list. You can put pictures on there, post-it notes, sticky tape. There's all kinds of little ways you can do that. My favorite apps, definitely Dropbox on my laptop. I also, when it comes to, you know, the social media ones, obvious ones like TweetDeck. I use Friendly for Facebook, but it's a little unreliable. I still haven't found a good one that it really is consistent. But probably my most used one would definitely be NoteShelf.
Now, there's a really good mind mapping software company out of your home country, Novamind.
There is,
and Novamind's very good.
Really cool, but I am so undisciplined with my mind maps. I just draw them, and those things to me are too structured.
Yep.
And I would spend more time finding a box to write something on than, you know what I mean, and to draw a branch.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's a little lazy, but I just use my little pink stylus.
You know, another thing that I found that I'm using more now that I've learned how to really use it is the WordPress app on both my phone and my iPad. And being able to, Neen, and you and I had this conversation about we come up, you know, how to come up with a bunch of blog ideas, and do we write them down in an app or a notepad or somewhere? Now I just go into WordPress on my iPad, and I will write out the title or some thoughts that I have on it, save it as a draft, and create a bunch of drafts. And then when I have that time that I can really sit down and focus, then I can open up the drafts and complete the blog post that way. So I think, you know, even being able to, again, work mobily really can save us more time using some of these apps.
Now, here's a quick question.
I have iMovie on my iPad too, because I run a PC environment at home, and I use the iMovie on my iPad. So I shoot the video, I've got an iPad too, shoot the video, edit it, and upload it. And Gina and I were talking last week, you know, in a small period of time, I shot 11 videos and uploaded them to YouTube, because I'm finding that video blogs get such a higher rate of comment, and people want to get something really quickly, understand what to do, but they won't necessarily read an article. So iMovie has become one of my favorites. Now, it's just the real basics of iMovie. There's not a lot of bells and whistles to it, but it's all I need to be able to shoot, upload, edit, and what's really cool about that is I can do it wherever I am. So if you're doing videos for your business, that can be a really neat app for you to use as well.
And if you get any of those moments of inspiration at that moment, you can just record it, you're done.
Right, yeah.
Right.
That's
with
nice.
hair and makeup, Rick, though.
Did you do those 11 videos on your iPad?
Yeah, all of them. Everything I've done is on my iPad.
That's pretty cool, huh?
Shut the front door!
I thought I had to censor her for a moment, but...
No, that's our saying. Shut the front door.
I didn't know that you recorded them on your iPad. And I just learned how to add the title text on the iMovie app on my iPad. I was thinking, gosh, that's the one thing that bothers me, that it doesn't have where you can put the titles in.
Right.
And then I was like,
I know how to do. I'm not super advanced on iMovie like you are, but I know how to put a title on, and I know how to edit, and that's about all I really need to do. Because you know what? If you do a really bad take, you can just reshoot it. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't take that much time.
Now, it's interesting. There's rumors that there will be an iPad HD coming out in the near future, which will have full video editing, Final Cut Pro, all of that on this HD. That's what they're talking about. I don't know how real it is, but pretty good sources.
I'm already saving for it, and I do think that they've got to come out with a better camera. I mean, the camera is really grainy. It's not great.
Right.
You know, the megapixels, I don't even know what they're, like 1 or 2.
Yep. I think it's 2.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I think you know, being able to learn to use these tools and not feel that we have to always go and have expensive equipment or equipment that takes us so much time to use and edit and do. I mean, there's apps for this, and those of you who don't have iPads, it's not that you can't do this on other sources. I mean, I used to think I had to set up my tripod, have my flip cameras, and you know, microphone, everything else. Now, turn on a webcam and talk and do a video blog. I mean, it's too easy to do, and the editing, you can now go to YouTube and edit right on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah. And, you know, there's just no more excuses for not having video clips.
Now, real quick, before we wrap up, because we're almost at the end of our time, note-taking applications. Everybody's doing notes, and they're having a problem coordinating notes between their iPad, their phone, their Mac, their Windows machine. I was using Evernote. Don't like Evernote's PC version. I think it's pretty crummy. What do you folks recommend? What are you guys using for note-taking?
It's interesting because I've been forcing myself to use Evernote because I was using all these others. I have NoteShelf. as well. And I had like 5 different note-taking apps, and I found that I really need to force myself to use Evernote because you can put audio files and pictures and everything in there. So I'm using Evernote now. How about you? And Neen, you're using NoteShelf.
I am using NoteShelf because I can also email it to myself or to a client if I've done a brainstorming session with one of the women in my mentoring program. I run a stiletto mentoring program for women. And so if I've taken notes in our meeting, then I can just email it directly to them. Plus, I set up an app on my iPad so I can also print. So if I need to print anything out, it can just go to the web print. So for me, it seems to be the easiest one. There's lots of ones out there that are available to you. I think you just got to really find what makes sense for you. And I think the more that I use it, the more I enjoy it. So I don't see a need to try any new ones. When it comes to productivity, the other thing I would say is, don't get tempted by all these amazing things. If you go on, you play, and it works for you, that's great. But if it doesn't, then feel free to abandon it and use what is working for you. And you know what? If you still write physical notes, then that works as well, as long as you're capturing.
And Terrence just brought up a good point. Google Docs. Open up a Google Doc, no matter where you are. Jot your notes.
Right.
That's true.
True.
Now, I have to ask, I'm probably setting myself, what is a stiletto mentoring program?
Rick, you have to know. It's all about the shoes.
I work with women around the world, just one-on-one, and so we work on their productivity, whether it means making them more productive in their personal or work life, or more productive as a presenter and the way they message themselves in the world, or maybe it's about being more productive with their business development. So it's a one-on-one program where I'm the mentor and I work with women for 6 months. It's so much fun, and women have had amazing results. One of my girls in the mentoring program, her business increased 100% in less than 6 months.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's really fun.
Rick thought it was where you teach people to walk in stilettos.
It can be done, Rick. I've even taught a guy how to walk in stiletto.
No, I don't want to do that.
I did. See, I didn't share on the show, but I did in honor of Neen and her stiletto mentoring group. I have my stiletto coffee mug that says "Pumped and Ready."
I love
Starting the day. Yeah. This has been great. I mean, it's always one of those things. I think we can get distracted by shiny objects. So I love your concept of BSO. You know, that big shiny object is really picking the things that work for us. Don't feel like we have to do it all, and then chunk it down and work mobilely whenever possible.
Yeah. And in the weather, many of us in the US right now are experiencing a beautiful summer. The great thing about using something mobile is you can enjoy the outdoors while you do it. So you can still spend time if you have a family there on vacation, or if you have a beautiful deck that you want to sit outside. Now, if you're in Melbourne like Jeff, it's a little bit too cold to be doing that. But the great thing about Melbourne, Jeff, is you have phenomenal cafe scenes, so you could take your iPad and sit out at one of the gorgeous coffee shops. But the great thing about mobile is it allows you to be more productive in the time that you want to work. So you might have others in your life who are doing activities that you want to be sort of a part of, but you still have some deadlines to meet. Mobile technology allows you to do that.
That's great.
And we have to give Jeff, points for productivity, because while he was listening, he set up a Dropbox account.
Yeah, I love that.
Good for Jeff.
Yeah. I'm telling you, Jeff, you have so many kudo points. Every week that you log in at 1 a.m., he gets like double points from
Jeff,
than
Jeff
anyone
is the
else.
Man. Yep.
He's Australian, of course he's fabulous.
Well, Neen, no pun intended, but I think this has been a very productive show. And
I'm so pleased.
It's very helpful. Anyway, guys, I think we're pretty much at the end of our almost 1 hour here. I think we could have gone on for a lot longer.
Next week we're going to be talking about creativity and innovation and using technology for innovation.
That sounds great. And Neen, thank you so much for giving us more than 15 minutes.
My absolute privilege to serve. I had so much fun. Thanks for including me. It's a really cool show.
Neen, tell us how we can connect with you, because be sure to connect with Neen on Twitter, Facebook, Google+.
You'll find me on Neen James. So Twitter is Neen James. My Facebook page for business is Impactivity. You can also search by Neen James, and my website is neenjames.com. So if you want to get some productivity tips regularly, you can sign up for my e-zine. There's one coming out on Friday.
Yep, you've got a great e-zine, and the podcasts are really helpful.
Thanks.
great info on your website. Tons
And by the
tons
way,
of
Gina,
helpful.
this is coincidental. I didn't know Neen was going to be on today. I followed her, I think, on either Sunday or Saturday, and then I saw your tweet, and I go, Neen's going to be on? Okay.
I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell Rick. Oh, Neen's our guest this week.
Yep.
You
know, I kind of figured that
love
one out.
Twitter. I think it's a great way to stay connected with the world.
Right. Yeah, follow Neen. Follow Rick at Rick Zanotti. The big Zanotti. I think you got to be the big Zanotti.
The big
That should
Z,
be your Twitter
yeah.
handle. Or Gina Schreck at Gina Schreck. So easy to find us. And now, you know, Google Plus. More time with Google Plus.
15 minutes, remember, Gina?
15 minutes. Okay, I'm going to set my timer. And then do I just reset it for another 15?
Absolutely.
All right,
everyone.
guys.
Have a
Goodbye,
great
everyone.
week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
New music.